Welcome to Karen Stories, where the wildest Karen encounters unfold. Get ready for hilarious, unbelievable, and shocking moments as Karens make the most outrageous demands. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to never miss a crazy story. Let's dive in. I had just stepped outside to enjoy a quiet afternoon in my backyard when I noticed something wasn't right. My lawn chair had been moved. My carefully arranged patio furniture looked off like someone had been sitting there, making themselves at home. My gut told me something was wrong before my eyes confirmed it. And when they did, I felt my stomach drop. There, sprawled out on one of my chairs like she owned the place, was a woman I had never seen before. Blonde, oversized sunglasses perched on her nose, her phone held at just the right angle for what I could only assume was a barrage of Facebook posts about how deserving she was of a day off. Next to her, lying haphazardly on the grass, were my hat and sunscreen items I had specifically left on that chair just a short while ago. And then there was the kid. A small boy, maybe 7 or 8, was splashing around in my pool. My private pool. The very one I had paid to install, maintain, and clean. He was kicking his legs like he was in some 5-star resort, arms outstretched, eyes closed as if he were savoring the moment. Like he belonged there. I stood frozen, my brain working overtime to process the sheer absurdity of the situation. Who were these people? How did they get into my yard? And more importantly, how dare they? Taking a deep breath, I walked forward, clearing my throat loudly enough to announce my presence. The woman, this intruder, barely glanced up. Instead, she waved a dismissive hand at me as if I was some sort of servant she had summoned. "Oh, hey there," she said casually, adjusting her sunglasses. "Hope you don't mind. The lake is just way too cold for my little one today, and when he saw your pool, well, you know how kids are." She chuckled, as if breaking into someone's yard and using their private property was just some cute misunderstanding. I could feel my pulse rising, my hands clenching at my sides. Excuse me?" I stammered, still half convinced this had to be some kind of joke. "This is my yard. My pool. You're trespassing." Her head finally turned toward me, and for the first time, she actually looked at me. Her lips pursed in mild annoyance, as if I was the one inconveniencing her. "Oh, don't be so dramatic," she said, waving a hand. "It's just a pool. We'll be gone soon enough." Just a pool. The sheer audacity left me momentarily speechless. I looked at the kid, still splashing around like this was his birthright. I looked at my displaced belongings on the ground. And then I looked back at this woman, this entitled, oblivious stranger, who had not moved an inch to correct the situation. "Ma'am," I said, struggling to keep my voice even. "You need to get up and take your son with you. Now." Her expression darkened immediately. Gone was the lazy, casual demeanor. Her lips pressed together, her brows furrowed, and suddenly she sat up, her sunglasses slipping down just enough for me to see the offended glare she shot me. "You don't have to be so rude," she snapped. "I'm just trying to keep my child happy." What kind of person refuses a child something as simple as a swim? I could hardly believe what I was hearing. What kind of person breaks into someone's property and acts like they're the victim? One that doesn't want strangers trespassing and using my things without permission. I shot back. "I'm asking you one last time. Get out," she huffed, crossing her arms, but still made no move to stand. "Well," she sniffed, her voice dripping with disdain. "I didn't realize you were one of those people." My blood ran cold. "One of what people?" I asked sharply, though I already had a feeling I knew where this was going. Her lips curled into a smug, knowing smirk. "You know, the kind that doesn't share, the kind that forgets where they came from." I couldn't help it, I actually laughed. A short, incredulous bark of laughter, because this woman was truly unbelievable. "This isn't about sharing," I said, my voice dangerously low. "This is about basic human decency. You don't just take other people's things because you feel like it." "But Karen?" "Oh, Karen wasn't having it. You have a whole yard and a beautiful pool," she snapped, rising to her feet as if she was finally ready to fight. "And you're really telling me you can't spare it for a single mother, trying to give her child a little joy?" At this point, my patience was hanging by a thread. I pointed at the kid, still blissfully unaware of the storm brewing between us. "You need to get out. Both of you. Before I call the police." The moment the words left my mouth, her face changed. First, there was a flicker of hesitation, of realization that she was losing control of the situation. But then, just as quickly, it morphed into pure outrage. "Oh, really?" she scoffed. "You'd call the cops on a child? You'd have my son dragged away in handcuffs, because you're so stingy? How heartless can you be?" The sheer manipulation in her voice sent a shiver down my spine. But I wasn't falling for it. I pulled my phone from my pocket and started dialing. That's when Karen's expression twisted into something far uglier than I'd seen before. And that's when she said the words that made my blood run ice cold. "You go ahead and call," she sneered. "But just remember, if the cops show up, I'll tell them you threatened my child." And just like that, the absurdity of the situation turned into something far more dangerous. For a second, the world around me seemed to freeze. My finger hovered over the call button. My breath caught in my chest as her words echoed in my head. "I'll tell them you threatened my child." The audacity. The sheer mind-blowing, soul-crushing audacity of this woman. I wasn't sure if I wanted to laugh at the absurdity, or let the rage bubbling beneath my skin finally explode. She wasn't just trespassing. She wasn't just using my pool without permission. She was now threatening to weaponize the police against me, to turn me into the bad guy in this twisted little play she had concocted in her entitled head. My grip tightened around my phone. Every logical part of my brain screamed that I should just call. Get it over with. But logic wasn't in control anymore. Anger was. I took a slow step forward, keeping my voice as measured as I could. "Say that again." Karen's smirk widened. She thought she had me. She thought that her empty, manipulative threats would shake me, that the mere suggestion of legal trouble would make me back down. "I said," she repeated, folding her arms, "that if the police come, I'll tell them you threatened my child. Let's see how that plays out for you." I could feel my jaw clenching so tight it might crack. My pulse hammered against my skull. I forced a deep breath through my nose, my gaze flicking between her and the kid still splashing around like nothing was wrong. Like this wasn't a potential life-ruining accusation. And then, I made a decision. I didn't dial the police. Not yet. Instead, I hit record. Karen's smirk faltered the second she heard the unmistakable chime of my phone's camera starting to film. "Oh, please tell me that wasn't your big move," I said, my voice dripping with something dangerously close to amusement. "Because here's the thing, Karen, I have a video too. And unlike yours, mine shows exactly what's happening. It shows you trespassing. It shows your kid destroying my property. And guess what? It also has you, loud and clear, threatening to make a false police report." Her lips parted. Her brain was working overtime now, trying to find an angle, trying to twist this in her favor. But I wasn't done. "You want to know what happens when you file a false report, Karen?" I continued, tilting my head. "Because I do. You can actually go to jail for that." A flicker of uncertainty crossed her face, just for a split second. Then, like the entitled nightmare she was, she doubled down. You're harassing me," she stammered, her voice rising just enough to make sure her invisible audience, the one she clearly thought she had, would hear. "I feel unsafe. You're a grown man towering over me and my child, waving a phone in my face. This is intimidation." Oh, she was good. I had to give her that. But I was better. "You mean like how you intimidated me into letting your kid trash my yard?" I countered smoothly. "Like how you silenced me earlier when I told you to leave? Like how you're standing here, trespassing, on camera, threatening to ruin my life because you didn't get your way?" She blinked rapidly, opening her mouth to speak. But that's when her kid, the one she had been using as a pawn in this ridiculous standoff, finally spoke up. "Mom, can we go now?" he whined, pulling himself out of the pool and shaking water everywhere. "I'm bored." I swear, I nearly laughed. The kid wasn't even having fun anymore. Karen, however, was not amused. Her eyes snapped to her son, then back to me, then to my phone still recording everything. Then, the final crack in her delusion appeared. Her carefully curated Karen confidence began to crumble. She took a step back. Just one. But it was enough. "You're a horrible person," she spat, grabbing her son's wrist and yanking him toward the gate. "I feel so sorry for whatever poor soul has to deal with you in real life. You're just bitter and jealous that you'll never have a family to enjoy this stupid yard with." And there it was. The final, desperate grasp at moral superiority. As if I was the bad guy here. As if she wasn't the one who had barged onto my property, used my things, and then tried to legally ruin me when she didn't get her way. But I just smiled. "You have 5 seconds to get off my property," I said, my voice calm. "Or I will call the police." She scoffed, muttering curses under her breath as she dragged her soaking wet kid past the gate. And then, just to add one final sprinkle of pure, unfiltered Karen energy to the mix, she knocked over my chair. It wasn't much, just a petty, childish gesture, but it was enough to send my blood boiling all over again. And yet, I didn't move. I just stood there, watching as she stormed away, flipping me off with one hand while clutching her phone in the other. No doubt already preparing some poorly written Facebook rant about the rude homeowner who ruined her son's day. The moment they were finally out of sight, I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. My pool was a mess. My yard was trashed. My heart was still racing from the sheer insanity of what just happened. But most importantly, I had it all on camera. And if this woman ever dared to try something again, I would be ready. I turned, slowly picking up my chair, placing my hat back where it belonged. Then, glancing toward the gate. One last time, I muttered under my breath, unbelievable. I had barely taken a step back toward my house when I heard it. That voice. That shrill, entitled voice that had already made my blood boil more times than I could count in the last few minutes. Oh, you think this is over? Think again, buddy. I turned just in time to see Karen stomping her way back toward my yard, dragging her soggy, shivering child behind her. Her face was flushed with rage, her oversized sunglasses now pushed up onto her head, revealing eyes filled with the kind of righteous fury that only comes from years of getting her way and never being told no. I could feel my patience hanging by a thread. I had already let her off easy. I hadn't called the cops. I hadn't forced the issue. I had given her every single opportunity to walk away with what little dignity she had left. But no. Karen, apparently, wasn't done making this day a nightmare. I hope you're ready to lawyer up, she sneered, jabbing a manicured finger in my direction. Because I'm suing you. I blinked, then blinked again. Suing? A laugh bubbled in my chest, half amusement, half sheer, dumbfounded disbelief. For what? I asked, genuinely curious as to what kind of delusional circus act she was about to perform next. She took a step forward, all but shoving her kid in front of her like a human shield. For emotional distress. For child endangerment. For harassment. She declared, each word more ridiculous than the last. I couldn't stop the incredulous chuckle that escaped me. You trespassed onto my property, used my pool, ignored multiple warnings to leave. And now you want to sue me? She crossed her arms, lifting her chin like she had just won some grand debate. Damn right I do, she spat. You scared my son. You threatened us. And you made a scene in front of my neighbors. I almost choked on my own frustration. You made the scene. I shot back. You waltzed onto my property, acted like you owned the place, and now you're the victim? Karen's lips curled into a smug, knowing smirk. That's exactly right, she purred. And you know what? I have witnesses. My stomach tightened. What witnesses? I followed her gaze, my eyes landing on a few people across the street, neighbors. Some watering their lawns, others standing idly by, clearly having overheard some of the commotion. Karen, seeing my hesitation, grinned like she had just won the lottery. That's right. People saw you yelling at me, saw you trying to intimidate me. And guess what? You're on camera too. A cold wave of realization hit me. Karen wanted this. She had planned this. Or, at the very least, knew exactly how to twist the situation to her advantage. She wanted to paint me as the aggressor. She wanted to weaponize perception. Play the part of the helpless mother standing up to the angry man who had dared to deny her child some harmless fun. I could already imagine it, some grainy, half-captured footage, conveniently starting right when I raised my voice, not when she had trespassed or made her insane threats. A Facebook post titled "Disgusting Homeowner Harasses Single Mom and Innocent Child." 100 shares. 1,000 angry comments. People who don't even know me demanding that I be held accountable. It was all so calculated. And I knew exactly what I had to do. I took a slow, steady breath, keeping my expression neutral. Then, without breaking eye contact with her, I raised my phone and flipped the screen to show that I had been recording the entire time. Karen's smirk shattered. Everything you've said? I said, my voice dangerously calm. Every threat, every lie? I have it all on tape. For the first time, she faltered. Her lips parted, her brain scrambling to find a way out. But I didn't give her the chance. You were so confident a minute ago, I continued, stepping forward just enough to make her take a reflexive step back. Go ahead. Call your lawyer. Call the cops. Better yet, I will. I started dialing. Karen panicked. Wait, there's no need to. I pressed the call button. Hi. Yes. I'd like to report a case of trespassing and harassment. Karen's face went pale. Dead pale. I watched the exact moment she realized she had lost. That her bluff had been called. Her little social manipulation game had backfired in the worst way possible. No, we're leaving, she said quickly, grabbing her son's arm with a force that made him yelp. There's been a misunderstanding. We don't need the police. Oh, no, I said, voice dripping with sarcasm. Now you suddenly don't want the cops involved. Her head snapped up, her expression a mixture of rage and humiliation. You're a pathetic, miserable excuse for a human being, she spat. I hope you rot in this stupid house alone. And with that, she spun on her heel and bolted. I didn't say another word, didn't call after her. Didn't need to. I just stood there, watching as she dragged her humiliated, confused kid away, knowing she would never dare set foot near my property again. The moment she disappeared, I exhaled, the adrenaline finally catching up to me. My fingers were shaking, my heart still pounding. I ended the call before dispatch picked up, because really, what was the point? Karen had lost. And she knew it. I glanced at the neighbors still lingering nearby, their expressions a mixture of amusement, curiosity, and approval. A few even gave me nods of understanding, before returning to whatever they were doing. I turned back toward my yard, shaking my head as I surveyed the mess left in her wake. Unbelievable. But at least now I had cameras. And if Karen or anyone like her ever tried this again, I'd be ready. I barely had time to let out a breath before my phone buzzed. A notification. I frowned, glancing at the screen. And that's when I saw it. Karen wasn't done. Oh no, she had just taken her war online. A new post was blowing up on the neighborhood Facebook group. The title? Beware, dangerous man harassing mothers and children in the community. My stomach tightened as I tapped the post. And there it was, in all its fabricated, self-victimizing, utterly delusional glory. Karen had twisted the entire story. According to her, she had been walking with her son when what aggressive, unhinged homeowner, had stormed outside, screaming at them for simply admiring the flowers. She claimed that when she had politely asked if her son could dip his toes in the pool, I had lost my mind, threatened to call the cops, and terrorized her innocent child to the point of tears. I scrolled through the comments, my blood boiling. The outrage was palpable. Disgusting. Who does that to a child? I always knew there were psychos in this neighborhood. Does anyone know where this happened? We need to warn others. And then because of course, someone had found my profile and dropped my name. I felt a rush of cold fury wash over me. This wasn't just an online tantrum. This was character assassination. And Karen? She had underestimated the wrong person. I took a deep breath, steadied my fingers, and typed 2 words. Here's proof. Then, I attached the unedited, full video of the entire confrontation. No cutting, no clever rewording, just pure, unfiltered reality. I hit post. And then, I waited. The comments section exploded. The shift was immediate, brutal. People who had been sharpening their pitchforks for me, just minutes ago, were now turning on Karen like a pack of wolves. Wait. So she literally broke onto his property, and then threatened to lie to the cops? This woman is unhinged. Why would she even admit to half of this in the first place? I take back everything I said. The real danger here is her. @Karen, care to explain yourself? And then, the final nail in her coffin. The moderator of the group pinned my comment. Pinned. Right at the top. For everyone to see. Karen had tried to control the narrative. Tried to turn me into a villain. But she had played her hand too soon. She thought her word alone would be enough. She hadn't counted on me having receipts. And now? The whole neighborhood knew exactly who she was. I watched as Karen frantically tried to backpedal. Her comments turning into an incoherent mess of excuses. Half apologies, and then predictably, anger. This is harassment. You're all sheep believing edited footage. I was the real victim here. No one was buying it. The Karen sympathizers had evaporated. The only replies she was getting now were people calling her out, telling her to apologize, telling her to leave the group. And then? She did. Karen deleted her post. Then, her entire account vanished from the group. I exhaled slowly, staring at the empty space where her lies had once festered. It was over. The internet had done what it did best. Exposed the truth, and destroyed the liar. I set my phone down, my body still humming with adrenaline. The fight had been longer, messier than it ever should have been. All of this, all of it, over a pool and a woman's refusal to accept. She wasn't entitled to what wasn't hers. And yet, I knew she wasn't truly gone. People like Karen, they don't just disappear. They retreat, regroup, and plot their next move. So I did what I should have done from the start. I installed new security cameras. Not just around my yard, but at every angle Karen could possibly try to use. My front porch, my driveway, even the alley behind my house. If she ever came near my property again, I'd have her on tape before she even stepped foot on my lawn. Days passed. A week. Then 2. And just when I thought I'd seen the last of her, a knock at my door. I checked the peephole. And there she was. Karen. Standing stiffly on my porch, arms crossed. Her face a mix of anger, and something else, something almost resembling defeat. I let out a slow breath. Then, I did the one thing she least expected. I opened the door. We locked eyes, neither of us speaking for a long moment. Then, finally, "I want the video taken down," she said. Her voice clipped, tight with barely concealed rage. I crossed my arms. Not happening. Her nostrils flared. You're ruining my reputation. I arched a brow. You did that all by yourself. She opened her mouth probably to spew more nonsense, but then she stopped. Her gaze flicked to something behind me. She saw them. The cameras. I saw the exact moment she realized she was trapped. Watched. Documented. No more twisting the story. No more lies. Karen exhaled sharply through her nose, her jaw clenching so hard I thought she might break a tooth. Then, without another word, she turned and walked away. And this time, she didn't come back. I watched her go, a slow smirk tugging at my lips. Finally, this time, the story ended on my terms. Karen never came back. Not to my house, not to my yard, not to my pool. It was as if she had been wiped off the face of the earth, though I knew better. She hadn't disappeared, she was just licking her wounds, biding her time somewhere else, waiting for a new victim who hadn't yet learned her name. That was the thing about people like her. They never changed, never learned, never reflected. They just moved on to the next person foolish enough to give them the benefit of the doubt. But me? I was done being fooled. For weeks, I half expected some sort of retaliation, a broken window, a fake complaint filed against me, some petty act of vengeance that screamed I refused to lose. But nothing ever happened. The online post remained deleted, her social media activity went dead, and the neighborhood group moved on to their next drama. Karen had lost, publicly and spectacularly. And for someone like her, that was a fate worse than any police report or fine. And yet, a bitter part of me wished she had come back. I wanted her to try something. I wanted her to give me a reason. Because this time, I wouldn't just expose her, I'd have her arrested. But she knew that, and that's why she stayed gone. One evening, as I sat on my patio, enjoying the peace and quiet that had once been stolen from me, I thought about everything that had happened. About how absurd it had all been. About how one person's entitlement had spiraled into a full-scale war over something as simple as basic respect. And yet, deep down, I wasn't even surprised. This is the world we live in now. People like Karen exist everywhere. They push, they take, they manipulate, and they get away with it because no one wants to deal with the fight it takes to make them stop. They weaponize social perception, twist the truth, play the victim, and they do it because it works. Because most people would rather let them have their way than deal with the exhausting battle of standing up to them. But I had fought back. And I had won. Not just for myself, but for every other person Karen would have tried this with. For every other homeowner, every employee, every innocent bystander she would have steamrolled if she hadn't met someone who refused to play by her rules. I took a sip of my drink, watching as the sun dipped below the horizon. The sky painted in soft shades of orange and pink. The air was warm, the water in my pool still and undisturbed. Exactly as it should be. This was mine, and no one was ever going to take it from me again. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly, the tension that had once gripped my body finally fading. Karen was gone. The war was over. And for the first time in a long time, I was at peace.